The modern economy rarely pressures people with dramatic financial decisions. Instead, it quietly introduces a series of small, convenient commitments that feel harmless on their own, yet collectively reshape how money flows through everyday life. Imagine opening a banking app at the end of the month and noticing that a significant portion of income has already been allocated before any intentional decision was made. Music streaming, cloud storage, productivity software, video platforms, fitness apps, meal kits, digital newspapers, educational tools, and countless other services now operate on the same simple model, a recurring monthly charge that appears small enough to ignore. Each individual subscription often feels insignificant, sometimes no more than the price of a coffee, yet the structure behind them represents a subtle but powerful shift in how modern economies extract revenue from individuals. The subscription model did not become dominant by accident. From the perspective of companies, recurring payments provide stability and predictability. Businesses can forecast revenue months in advance, smooth out seasonal fluctuations, and build long-term financial planning around reliable cash flow. For consumers, however, the psychology works very differently, because the human brain tends to evaluate expenses individually rather than collectively. When a person considers whether to pay $10 for a digital service, the decision is usually framed in isolation. The price seems small relative to perceived value, the commitment feels reversible, and the payment disappears into the background of automated billing. What rarely happens in that moment is a full mental calculation of how many similar decisions accumulate across an entire financial life. Behavioral economists often describe this pattern as a form of mental accounting, where individuals categorize spending into separate mental boxes instead of viewing money as a unified system. A streaming service belongs to entertainment, cloud storage belongs to productivity, a fitness app belongs to health, and each category feels justified within its own context. Yet the financial system itself does not recognize those psychological categories, it simply aggregates the total. Over time, these small recurring expenses can quietly transform fixed monthly obligations in the same way that rent, insurance, or utilities once did. What began as flexible spending slowly becomes structural spending. The mathematical mechanics behind subscriptions are not complicated, but their implications are often overlooked. Consider a person who holds 10 different subscriptions, each costing $10 per month. Individually, each payment appears trivial, yet together they represent $100 leaving the account every month. Over a single year, that becomes $1,200, and across a decade, the cumulative total reaches $12,000, not including potential price increases that commonly occur once customers are fully integrated into a service ecosystem. The numbers themselves are not extreme, but the important detail lies in how quietly they accumulate without requiring new decisions each month. This dynamic reflects a broader shift in the architecture of the modern economy. Historically, many purchases required active decisions at the moment of payment: buying a book, purchasing software, renting a movie, joining a gym. The act of paying was visible and therefore cognitively noticeable. Subscription systems remove much of that friction by transforming occasional decisions into automated financial streams. Convenience increases, which often improves access to services and reduces short-term effort, yet the long-term effect is that financial commitments gradually migrate into the background of daily awareness. Technology companies, media platforms, and service providers have increasingly optimized their business models around this behavioral tendency. Free trials transition into paid plans, introductory prices rise after a certain period, and cancellation processes sometimes require multiple steps that discourage interruption. None of these mechanisms are necessarily deceptive on their own, but together they form a structure that relies heavily on inertia. Once a subscription becomes part of a person's financial environment, it tends to persist longer than originally intended, simply because reversing the decision requires attention and action. From a systemic perspective, the subscription economy represents a transformation in how value is delivered and monetized. Instead of selling discrete products, companies now aim to occupy a continuous position within a consumer's monthly budget. The goal is not a single transaction, but a permanent slot in the stream of recurring payments that define modern financial life. As more industries adopt this model, from software to entertainment to personal services, the cumulative effect reshapes the structure of household spending. Understanding the system does not necessarily require eliminating subscriptions altogether. Many of these services provide genuine utility, convenience, and access that would have been difficult or expensive in previous decades. The key insight is simply recognizing the mechanism at work. When financial decisions become automated, they shift from active choices into background systems, and systems have a tendency to expand quietly over time. Viewing subscriptions collectively rather than individually allows people to see how a series of small commitments gradually forms a larger financial structure.
In that sense, the subscription economy is less about individual purchases and more about the architecture of modern consumption. It reflects a broader pattern in which technology and behavioral design intersect with financial systems to create stable revenue for companies while subtly redistributing attention away from the cumulative impact on individuals. The change is not dramatic, and it rarely feels urgent, yet over long periods of time, these quiet mechanisms play a significant role in shaping how money moves through everyday life.